joined by Josh here. And after a long wait, we finally had a football game. Although it wasn't much of a football game, it was the first one of the season for the Sun Devils. And although it was Southern Utah, as the Pac-12 showed, there is no opponent that you can take lightly on your schedule because Pac-12 North had 5 losses. U of A lost to BYU, so only 6 teams won in the Pac-12. So I'm not going to say it was an impressive win by any means, but a win is a win. Josh, we are back. We're going to talk about Herm. We're obviously going to get into this Southern Utah game. We're going to talk some Jaden Daniels as well. We all know he's a fan favorite around, in Tempe. And then we're also going to talk about the next week's game against UNLV. So, Josh, we're going to talk about Herm Edwards first in this first segment. We're going to get into kind of the players and Jaden Daniels in the next segment. But tell me what you saw from the game plan. We can talk about the game in general, but tell me what you saw from Herm's game plan and, what you liked, what you didn't like.
Yeah, I think, week 1 home opener, it was a big game. ASU, there's high expectations like we talked about, full crowd, everyone's back rooting for these boys to have a good game. And, usually like the past couple of years that we've been to ASU, week 1, it's a lightly tread. Yeah, it's a cakewalk. It should be. And, that's the coaches do that on purpose. I mean, these are made, years in advance, these schedules. But, the coaches kind of do that on purpose so they can, it's like a walkthrough almost. It's like a, full walkthrough with pads and full hitting, because let's be honest, Southern Utah is not a premier opponent. It's I don't want to diminish the program, but it's not a premier opponent for, a Pac-12 Power 5 school, such as ASU. And, we did what we should have done to them. I saw a lot of good things. The defense, Mr. Darian Butler really played their butts off, held Southern Utah to, I think, 14 points. And, one of those scores came within like 5 minutes. So a large part of the game was really just a defensive showing from ASU. And, we'll talk about a little bit what Jaden did later, but this game really was kind of carried by defense and our running back group. What do you think about how our team did Southern Utah and how, we did have some pretty bad penalties in the first half. We had 9 first and longs. Got to clean that up. But what was your takeaways?
Yeah, so the penalties are number one. 11 penalties in the first half, 13 for the game is the most under Herm Edwards since he's been here. So that's not something to take lightly. Second, I know it was Southern Utah and no one should be like, hey, wow, look at us. We beat Southern Utah. But just look around the Pac-12, man. So we beat Southern Utah. Utah beat Weber State. Colorado beat Northern Colorado. Outside of that, I mean, Washington State lost to Utah State. U of A lost to a BYU team that did not look that good. Cal lost to Nevada. Purdue beat Oregon State. I know Purdue's a Power 5 Big Ten team, but they're not very good. Purdue beat Oregon State. Kansas State beat Stanford. Washington, in the huge upset of the weekend, lost to Montana. I mean, UCLA did end up beating LSU, which is a fantastic win for the Pac-12. Good for the Bruins. Correct. USC had a very convincing win over San Jose State. I know a lot of people will see the San Jose State name and really not be that impressed with it. But San Jose State's a very good program. And to beat them 30-7 is not something you can really do lightly. I'll say Drake London for USC, man, is that guy good. He is scary. The interception that he had for USC, I don't know if you saw any of the highlights. San Jose State ran a screen to Drake London's side on defense. He read the screen and backpedaled into coverage and made a very athletic interception and was like, man, that's someone that's you can just tell by that one play is like, okay, that's going to be someone that's playing on Sundays. So
is locked in.
And I felt the same from Darian Butler, and I think we're going to get more into the personnel decisions kind of in the next segment of individual players. But, what I like from ASU is they committed to running the ball. We've been saying that last season on Devil Dash. We've been saying it on last episode. We've been talking about it. I've even said it in some people that I've talked to, like Jaden Daniels. I love the, kind of throw his name in the Heisman contender because I think there's a good chance, we could be undefeated going into the UCLA game and undefeated potentially if you can take care of business into the USC game. So I think if that's the case, he'll be in the Heisman contender. But games like Southern Utah show why that he's never going to be in the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks listed for the NFL draft because, yes, he was a very efficient 10 for 12. But this team's identity is not moving the ball all around across the field. It is running between the tackles with an experienced offensive line and setting up play action. That is how this offense is set. The defense got, 5 turnovers? It was, to me, it was a really good game plan. And I think the score was not indicative of how dominant ASU was. I think I was very, very pleased with what I saw from the team. Outside of UCLA, I don't think there's been a better team. Oregon struggled against Fresno State, which, by the way, I know my buddy Sam Connon is not the biggest fan of the comments I had about DTR. I saw a UCLA fan that said, "We want Bama" on their big sign. Oh, yeah, man. Usually when that happens, good things do not follow. UCLA against Fresno State this week, be on the lookout. Fresno State put up a great fight against Oregon. They're disappointed that they could have won that game. Oregon scored with 2.5 minutes left to win. So look out for a hungry Fresno State team against UCLA. I still think UCLA takes care of business, but just look out for that game next week. But man, ASU, they really stuck to their guns. They rushed the passer, Darian Butler with 2 interceptions, and they ran the ball, 6 rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's everything we thought we were going to see. We thought we were going to see our defense be a stout defense. We talked about it last week, how this defense could be, statistically up there with the Washington and the Utah defenses of the past. This is going to be a really good defense, and they don't need Jaden Daniels to win games. And I promise you, against UCLA, USC, Utah, maybe even Oregon later on, we will see a Jaden Daniels game. He will be needed. We're not going to run the ball for 200 yards against every program. I want to say we had 220 maybe against Southern Utah. We are going to need some 250-yard passing games from Jaden Daniels, and it will come. But the running game gives us a little more access to build up that young wide receiving core that we have, because they're not super comfortable to be. I mean, imagine if we were playing Ohio State plays Oregon next week. Imagine if we were relying on, Johnny Wilson and LV Bunkley Shelton to step in and have one of them be 100-yard, receiver against a quality team. They're not ready for that yet. So we really stuck to our guns, and I was really, really happy with the game plan that I saw from ASU.
Yeah, I mean, running the football like we've kind of committed to with this core group we have, that really just sticks with the, Herm Edwards pro model, that he brought to ASU. And I really like, this first game established a lot of confidence in our defense, especially in the trenches. I know that's where these games are won. And, I know we're missing Jermaine Loyal. That definitely hurts, but these guys carried their own. And, like we said, shout out to Darian Butler, 2 interceptions and 5 tackles. Dude was just going off against this team. And, Antonio Pierce really has these guys locked in right now. I think, we're going to get a bigger test down the road. I think UNLV, I think they're going to try and put up more points than, Southern Utah, and they're going to have a little more success than them. Just when it comes to, offensive production as a whole. I doubt we have 5 turnovers against UNLV because, for one, I think they're going to keep the ground on the ball a little bit more. But, they're coming to Tempe.
They have a very good running back.
Yeah, and they're coming to Tempe, and I think, we're going to be prepared and ready, because this is another game where we kind of need to, spread our wings a little bit. And we're still, like we talked about, 11 penalties in the first half. The goal for this game should be 0 penalties, in the first half. That would be a major improvement. And, Herm talked about this in a press conference today. He talked about the guys, being just this game was something that they looked forward to for, over a year, fans back in the stadium. And, he said that he thought they were really, really excited, and they maybe played with a little bit more emotion. And, that can lead to mistakes really fast, as you've seen. So, he did a full walkthrough on Sundays. So they hopefully cleaned up, a bunch of these problems that they had against Southern Utah. But moving on to our next topic, we talked a lot about the defense. We talked a lot about our running back group. Jaden, he was there. He was commanding this offense. Let's not, discredit anything this kid did. But, how in this single performance of Jaden's alone, how can we really truly assess it? When you really look at the numbers, like you said earlier, he threw 10 passes for like 120 yards, and those really could have been in, situations where we needed it, considering we had, 9 first and longs in the first half. Like that's kind of where, that's where you needed his arm. But, our running backs dominated the ground and our defense put this team in an offensive position to, within like 40 to 30 yards every single time, they were just scoring, only putting themselves back by penalties. So I think, we really didn't see the true Jaden. I think we saw kind of what this team is really going to look like. Bigger picture, strong defense, great running back core, and, a hopeful Heisman candidate and Jaden Daniels. But I think, we could take this team to the next level too. If one of these groups are slipping, Jaden's got to be there. But what can you say about Jaden's performance today? Especially when you look at the defense and the running back and how they did.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, two things. I don't think this is going to be the Jaden Daniels game. But that being said, I think if there is one, that this game could be it. Because two reasons I say that. Just because it's UNLV and it's a name that, has won basketball championships and done this, they're in Las Vegas, blah, blah, blah. Don't get confused by the name. UNLV is coming off an overtime loss to Eastern Washington last week. They are not a good football program. That being said, they have a very good running back and they can control clock. And the reason why I don't think this is going to be the Jaden Daniels game is because, we're going to try to control the clock on them. We're going to run the ball a lot. But like I said, the reason why I think this should be the game is because we play BYU next week. I just watched BYU I watched the entire game against Arizona. Man, that BYU defense is slow on the edges. I think ASU can run for 175 to another 200 yards against BYU in the following week, in week 3. So I think if there is a warm-up game, if you will, for Jaden Daniels, that this is going to be the game, because not that we're not going to be able to run the ball over any opponent we play, because I'm very confident in this line and running back group. But, if Jaden Daniels throws an interception or two this game and we still win by 3 touchdowns, then, man, heck, I'll take that, because we need him to, whenever, let's say it's the UCLA game, the Utah game, we need that to not be his first call to action. We need him to, make some tough throws. We saw a great throw to Andre Johnson, I believe it was, on the outside, that was named Pac-12 Catch of the Week last week. But, I think if there is a game to get Jaden going, this is going to be the game. But again, we talked about it and we hammered it home. I don't think this is going to be the game. I really don't, because what signs point to that? Wow, we're all of a sudden going to throw the ball 35 times this game. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so Jaden in game 1 was very efficient, 10 for 12, and that's what you love to see, because that's what he's hung his hat on, accuracy, getting the ball to where it needs to be and moving the chains. The problem with that is we all have very high expectations for Jaden Daniels, and I think we know on the inside, and I think Herm knows too, that if we can unlock this offense with Jaden is the final piece to, potentially being a Rose Bowl / top 7 to 10 team in the country. The defense is there. The run game is there. I know the wide receivers are a little iffy, but you need the quarterback to make those wide receivers better, where all of a sudden, we run the ball twice and it's 3rd and 7. Now we need a big 7 yards. It's just not a recipe for success when you run into games like USC. I mean, look how we choked last year against USC. It's because we wanted to run the ball and had no faith in throwing the ball. So I don't know. Like I said, that was kind of a long rant just to get back to the point. I don't think it will be, but if there is a game to get Jaden Daniels going, I think it's this game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He just got his feet wet. 10 perfect passes that he completed. But, like we've talked about, the ground game is going to be, the premier feature from this team. We have Jaden, but it seems at this point that the ground game is just, the running back group is far, more productive. I mean, we've seen what Zach Hill has done, with them. And I want to shout out to Curtis Hodges. I know you talked about him. He was one of your guys to look out for in this game. And, a lot of people will look at the box score real fast and go, hey, this guy only had like 2 catches for like 50 yards. What's that? But, each of them went for like 22 to 29 yards. And I'm pretty sure they were in very clutch situations. And besides the passing Herm talked about today, he was very proud of him. This is one of the best games he played, since he kind of transitioned into this tight end, more heavy blocking role. But he was very proud of him. And I think that was in the last week and will be a major reason for our ground success this season. Hold on, I'm about to sneeze.
I actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying? Sorry about that.
No, I had a sneeze coming and it escaped me.
What I was gonna say is I listened to Herm Edwards' press conference today, and what he really talked about. He talked a lot about UNLV and all of that. He was talking about UNLV's running back. His name is slipping me. Charles Williams is his name. He racked up, I want to say, over 170. I think it was 172 yards on the ground. So again, it was Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington not even in the same league. Literally, they're not even in the same league. And not even a non-Power 5 school. They're just I want to say they're probably FCS. They're not even. They don't come close to ASU's athletes or talent. So I do not expect him to go over 172 yards against ASU. But he really talked about gap integrity this week. He had a quote that I really liked because anyone that plays football knows this. You could be in your gap, and yeah, the ball's not coming to your side, but you need to have the gap integrity. You need to trust that the guy next to you is going to be in his gap and that you're going to be in your gap, because that's how you stop plays. It's not making the monster play trying to go 2 gaps over. If you break your lineman, you can get through and make a play. But if you're locked up, don't try to be a hero and stay in your gap. And Herm was really emphasizing gap integrity, which I think is very important against a good running team, and I think it's very important for penalties as well. You're going to be a lot more disciplined, and you're not going to get a lot of stupid penalties like we had a roughing the punter and just stuff like that are just the pass interferences, the holdings, that stuff happens. Right. The roughing the punter, the false starts, the offsides. Actually, I don't know if we had any offsides, but that's the stuff that's inexcusable. Those are known as drive killers, or the intentional grounding. We saw that quite a few times last year. Trying to get out of the pocket and then throwing an intentional grounding. So, it's just a lot of little things. And I think not only gap integrity, but that's kind of what Herm was emphasizing is do your job. Don't try to be the hero. Do your job and what you're asked to do. And this defense has the talent to be a whole. And you mentioned Jermaine Lole, who, he's out for the season with a torn either quadricep or it's a bicep, I believe. But he undoubtedly is maybe Darian Butler was the best player on this defense. So that is not a loss to be taken lightly. And then we saw Tyler Johnson get ejected, in the first quarter for an obvious targeting call. And, he hit the quarterback, got ruled for targeting, and then throws his hands up like, what did I do? What did I do? And you watch the replay, and it's just straight helmet to helmet, crown of the helmet, right to the quarterback's head. Yeah, it's just, oh my God. Stuff like that when you're playing a USC, not only does that give them 15 yards, but, one of your better players in Tyler Johnson is now out for the rest of the game in the first quarter. Like, those are the things that I think Herm is emphasizing that this team needs to get better at. And yeah, we're lucky at Southern Utah, but look at the Washingtons. Look at Washington State. I mean, just you can't make those mistakes. And if you do, these worser teams are going to beat you now. There is no 70-7 cupcake game anymore. So that's why when we talk about Jaden Daniels' performance, I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously, you want to see more. Everyone wants to see more. But, you can't be disappointed with his performance. And I think you have to take a lot of things into consideration. He went out early, mid-third quarter with cramps and didn't return. He's fine now for next week. But, just a lot of things. Overall, I would give him a pretty solid grade. And I think PFF actually had him, as a top 3 quarterback for the Pac-12 in this week. So, just a lot of things to consider and stuff like that. Yeah. What would you grade him out of A, B, C, D, F? What would you give him?
I mean, look, first of all, this is a game where, he's either going to throw for 350 yards or he's going to literally let almost everyone do the rest of the work, because this isn't a game where you need to stretch Jaden Daniels. And that's what I think, a lot of people need to realize. We don't need to have this guy throw for 400 yards for us to win this game. We just need him to make, the right passes in the right moments. And, he got those opportunities and he did his job. I mean, I'd give him, an A. I mean, this game, the script was kind of written from the start. I mean, they were, I want to say 45-point favorites. Vegas made them. I mean, this game was going to be a blowout. Everybody knew it. This was really more of a test for like Southern Utah. These are the games that they schedule and they're like, look, these guys are way better than us, like leagues ahead of us, but we're going to go in there. We're going to give it our best shot. Like, if you guys actually want to play at the next level, like this is one of the first steps you need to take. You need to like learn from these guys, learn how they played against us, all of that. I'd probably give him, an A. He did his job.
Yeah. And, we're going to kind of piggyback off that into our last segment, just kind of what we expect. I know I just went into it a lot. What we expect against UNLV. And, we talked about gap integrity and kind of doing your job. But, I want to ask you this question. Let's say the run game, I don't think it's going to be against UNLV, but let's say the run game doesn't work, against the USC, who has a lot of athletes, and, Utah, the big guys, Polynesian guys on their defensive line that are all beasts. Like, if this run game doesn't get going, who besides Jaden Daniels, obviously, who's someone that you want to see get going on the offense? Because that's something we've always kind of struggled with Jaden Daniels is like, yes, the running backs have been great. Yes, Jaden Daniels spreads the ball out. He doesn't have a favorite receiver, blah, blah, blah. But, at some point we need that alpha male, which we expected to be Frank Darby last year. And Darby obviously played like 3 snaps against USC and then sat out the rest of the year with an injury. But who's actually, I don't know if he made the team, but he was on the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know if he ended up making the team. But
he is. I saw
awesome.
the video. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, actually, I saw he signed a nice contract, actually, like a 3-year deal or something. Yeah. So what's a name, maybe a receiver, maybe it's Daniel Ngata, the 3rd string running back of someone, maybe it even is one of the running backs out of the backfield. I think that's kind of a cheap answer, but what's someone you want to see step up?
So, I mean, I think the number one guy for Jaden Daniels this year, it needs to be Johnny Wilson. Okay. Because, let's just look at Johnny Wilson, where he was going before this. And that paints a pretty good picture of itself. I mean, this guy was committed to Oregon and, just straight up Oregon gets the best athletes like on the West Coast, up there with, USC, UCLA. I wish I could say ASU, but we're not quite there yet.
We get really good quarterbacks, though. We do always get really good quarterbacks. I don't know why, but
shout out Jake the Snake.
Shout out Manny Wilkins.
Manny. And so I think it has to be Johnny Wilson. I mean, this dude is like 6'7". He can go up and get a pass if he needs to. If Jaden overthrows him, like that's what you're looking for in in these wide receivers. And I'm sure he's a great route runner too. But I think it needs to be Johnny Wilson. I think we're going to see a lot of, clutch plays and catches this year by Curtis Hodges. I think, Zach Hill has really stepped up this, offensive structure and game plan. We're really utilizing, the tight end position more. And, right when big homie gets off 3 blocks and bounces off, he's going to be wide open. And, Jaden's going to have to make that pass very fast. But it's going to be there. And I know it's going to be, something deadly, hopefully in the red zone, come down the line in a lot of these games. But, what would you say? I mean, I know I would say you would think, Nagata. I mean, you mentioned him earlier. Like a 3-headed monster back there. Like, what if we just whip out a triple option in like our 5th game of the year?
So there's one name. Obviously, I was the one that mentioned, Curtis Hodges last week because, I think that's going to continue all season. I think he's going to be a big red zone target. I don't think Ngata is really somebody that needs to step up because our 2 running backs are both, NFL caliber running backs. And I really, this is something we very similarly saw to a guy that a lot of Sun Devil fans know named Eno Benjamin. If you remember when Eno Benjamin was here, there was 2 guys in front of him named Demario Richard and not Demarius Randall. Oh my gosh, why? Kalen Ballage, duh. Kalen Ballage and Demario Richard, and the third string running back was Eno Benjamin. And we saw Eno Benjamin against Colorado in his freshman year, and he had one beast of a run against Colorado at home that was like, wow, this guy's the future. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that from Ngata. We saw him walk in for a touchdown. The name that I don't think he's necessarily going to step up a ton, but I think we could see some, one to maybe two deep balls to him a game is is it Jalen Connors? I think it's his name. He's not really much of a passing threat. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the depth chart right now. He's a tight end, and he plays. When we run two tight ends, Hodges and his name's Jalen Conyers. I think it's Connors, but it's spelled Conyers. I saw a stat that jumps off the page for you when you see the stat, but it's never going to be on the stat sheet. It's in our 6 rushing touchdowns, he was the main blocker that set up the touchdown in all 6. And that is I forgot exactly what the stat's called, but he was like the main point of block, which means he was setting the edge. He was, he was the one that ran out and blocked the linebacker or whatever. He was the main blocker so he was the main blocker in 6 of our 6 rushing touchdowns. And I know in the preseason, there's talks about him not necessarily being a high volume catcher, but someone who does have good speed. And as we saw with the blocking, he can get out into space, move his feet quick and lay down a block, but he can also get upfield quick. I'm looking for some play action where he fakes a block and goes upfield. I think that's someone that we're not necessarily going to see, 7-8 catches, but we could see, just like the tight end Curtis Hodges, we could see 2 catches for 70 yards from this guy, 2 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. I'm expecting that in a few games this year, and that's someone I think we could step up because he's going to slip under the radar compared to, Johnny Wilson, our 2 running backs coming out of the backfield, and LV Bunkley Shelton. So I think Jalen Connors, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but that's my guy I would look out for. I gave you, follow my picks, tail me. I gave you the Curtis Hodges, hop on this one. Jalen Connors, man, that guy, not only just in the pass game, but in the run block game is pretty good.
Yeah, I think next coming Saturday, against UNLV, the guy that I want to see, do good, just maybe have a little more catches, a little more yards. Ricky Pearsall, I think, this guy's speed is deadly. We've seen it, for the past 2 years, some pretty nifty plays Zach Hill comes up with. Just utilizing this guy's legs. But I think, he could break away. I want to see an 80-yarder. I want to see this dude just blow past the defense, get some ESPN reel to add to his tape. But I don't know. Other than that, we're running out of time. Wills,
give me a score prediction, Josh, for this Sunday.
I was about to say that. Wills, give me your score prediction for next week. At home against UNLV, it's going to be another packed house.
I personally think that this game and the BYU game, if you want some good money, and somehow if the books are offering both weeks, I would personally, good thing I'm not a betting man, but I would put a lot of money on ASU spread against UNLV. I think it's only at 14 and a half right now, or maybe 21, but it's something I was looking at this morning. For
I
UNLV,
think it's way high.
But I think against BYU especially, we are going to murder them. I think ASU is going to put up 45 points this week. I'm going to go 45-14, not even close, gone from the very beginning. Maybe even Jaden Daniels gets pulled out early, and I think we could see a lot of Daniel Ngata kind of getting that Benjamin freshman year treatment. I'll say this. Last point, I know we're about to run out of time. ASU, UCLA, and USC, I think, are immediately head and shoulders above the rest because everyone else has below average to average quarterback play. I have still yet to see Utah's quarterback play a real defense, but outside of Slovis, DTR, and Jaden Daniels, I really don't think there's a lot of parity in the quarterback play for the Pac-12. It really could be a 3-horse race, and I think a lot of us left out UCLA, including myself.
And on a final note, I will update you on the spread of the ASU game against UNLV. So Caesars Sportsbook opened ASU 34-point favorites, and now currently – the line is 32.5. So
I like it.
67% of the public bet is on UNLV, so they're doubting us, baby. They're doubting us. But for now, today, that is all we have. Wills, I know it's going to be another barn burner at the Frank Cooks Field on Saturday. It'll be
You know the house is going to be rocking.
9/11. I guarantee you they're going to have them off the parachutes like they did against UCLA when we played them last time.
Guarantee you they have a sweet Pat Tillman tribute too.
You're dang right they will. But all right, guys. Hope you enjoy the show. Shout out to Dash Sport. Shout out Twitter. All of that.